Recently, Jonas Tyroller released an extension that is kind of like GeoGuessr but for Steam, where you get a Steam page and you have to immediately guess how many reviews the game has. This is not about that, but it's about a trend that I noticed when going through this game myself. Take a quick look at these clips and see if you can spot what I'm talking about.
I try to give the benefit. Okay, no, this is 0. This has to be a 16, right? Okay, yeah. Token game. Oh, 0. This, on the other hand, is an easy 0. Look and learn. Oh, this is 0.
If you're not sure how I managed to figure out that all of these games were pretty low in review count and I wasn't just statistically guessing, it came down to Steam capsules. That's what this whole video is about. It's about Steam capsules and how they're important and how you make better ones, even if you're not a talented artist, just better than the 2 out of 10 garbage that honestly I saw in some of these clips. I know this may sound rude, but I think Steam capsules are something that are extremely important and I don't want you to mess these things up. So let's talk first about how can I get that spidey sense of, okay, if you have a bad capsule, then you have a bad game. Because I think there's some correlation, causation stuff in there as well. I'm not a data scientist, I don't know about this, but basically, it's like, the capsule is not the only thing that causes success. Now, I want to say that if you have a bad game and a good capsule, it's not going to be a guarantee that you're going to have an amazing game. But I think the opposite is more true, where if you have a bad capsule, you're way more likely to have a bad game as well. And I think there's a few reasons for this as well. I think it's just kind of, it comes down to the statement that I sometimes say of like, how you do anything is how you do everything, where it shows a lack of dedication, a lack of wanting to do things. Capsules are multifunctional at the end of the day, and there's a bunch of different reasons why you want to have good capsules. So first off, Steam capsules are shown on, for example, the front page of Steam, or in the new and trending or popular upcoming, or on Steam events, for example, where people know nothing else about the game except the Steam capsule and the title. And this is everything you have. So the Steam capsule is basically more than 50% of your marketing, I would say. A good capsule would immediately show what is the genre, what is the expectations you can have of a player in terms of quality and all of those things. And if you have a Steam capsule that is just simply default font and it has bad spacing and it is bad composition and it's just like word art basically slapped together, that signals immediately that, hey, this developer honestly doesn't take this game that serious. So why would I take this serious? Because if he can't make one single PNG look good, that is the core of the game's marketing, why should I trust him and why should I click through to find out more about the store page if there's a big chance that he's not going to pull anything else through into the full game basically? Because if you just make a shitty capsule, what makes me think that you're going to be making a good game as well? So this may sound rough, but what I'm almost judging in those 0.2 seconds that I look at the Steam capsule is competence of a developer. I know, maybe you take offense to this, but I can immediately see, are you a competent game developer or not? Because if you just take the first thing you can slap together in 5 minutes in MS Paint and you put that on your Steam store page, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're that competent of a game developer. I don't care how beautiful your code may be. Game development is about everything. It's also about art. It's also about making good capsules. And those are things that you should take in mind as well. And I know some of you guys are coping right now and you're going down to the comments and you're giving me these counter arguments that I kind of just quickly want to break down because I think they're stupid and I don't want to respond to every single comment. And the first one that I get often is like, oh, but I don't want my Steam capsule to be misleading. It's like, oh, if I'm making a 2D pixel art game, I should be making a 2D pixel art style like Steam capsule as well, right? It's also going to be in 16 by 16. And once again, the answer is no, because capsules are not about the exact game you're going to be making, it's about the vibes that the game is going to have. Generally, also, Chris Zukowski did some research on this. Pixel art capsules convert way less in general. Yes, maybe you'll be thinking like, oh, but if I don't really show them, I'm gonna clickbait them. And it's like, brother, this is not the point to start complaining about it, because if you're using pixel art as your Steam capsule, they will most likely never even click on it in the first place. If you have a good capsule that encapsulates the vibes and the feeling of the game, it's way more important than the exact visual style. Whether it's 3D stylized, whether it's 2D art, like hand-drawn, whether it's 2D pixel art, that doesn't matter as much. Can you clearly communicate the genre? Can you communicate, is it an adventure game? Is it a happy game, a sad game? Those are the things that you are communicating through your capsule, and that is what's important. You want to make the player want to find out more about the game that you're kind of like showing to them. They're going to be looking at the capsule most of the time, not when they're already on the Steam page. And then another one that, I get often as well is like, oh, but look at this game that has a bad capsule and they still sold millions of dollars. What about that? And the answer to that is you're not special. You're not going to be the exception to the rule most likely. So why do you want to take that risk? You know, there's a 1 in 100 chance that if you have a bad capsule, let's say, your game still succeeds. I think realistically it's more like 1 in 1,000. Do you really want to take that chance when there's no real downside to just having a good capsule in the first place? The only downside is maybe it's gonna cost you $200 or something. But even then, you can make good capsules, to be honest, for free, just by using good game assets, having a bit of an understanding of like how Affinity Photo works or something, which is a free image editing software. Most of the capsules for our games, I make them myself, both 2D and 3D. And sure, sometimes for certain games, having a dedicated capsule artist can work, but for the most part you don't even need to have those things. I'll talk about like the very like core MVP version of a capsule that is like the minimum but very easy to make still later on in the video, but there is literally no reason for you to have a bad capsule. That's all basically. So don't just look at the rare exception and make that your entire marketing goal. Because if that's how you see game development, where you're like, oh, everything is luck driven anyway, then it's like, what are we doing here? It doesn't make sense. Go and put as much effort into your Steam capsule and the entire game as you can. So with that out of the way, how do you actually make your own Steam capsule and make it decent at least? Because we need to first take a step back. I'm not going to dive in immediately into like, oh, download Photoshop or whatever. First, you need to understand what are Steam capsules and what aren't they? And the first important thing here is that they 100% are a marketing asset. This is purely for marketing. It doesn't matter what the game is, you want to have a good capsule. It's going to be the billboard that is going to advertise your entire game in just one single image. And you know, you have the saying, a picture says more than 1,000 words. That is the case here. You want to basically condense your entire store page into one image. What are the vibes? What is all of that? And you're not going to be doing that by simply taking a screenshot of your game and slapping some default Arial font text over it, because that is not going to be great marketing. You would not want a billboard like that when all of the other billboards around you are beautiful. They clearly explain what the game is all about and all of that. So instead, you need to kind of think a bit more about what you want to do here. You want to iterate as well. That's going to be something you want to do as well. Play around with various kinds of capsules. Don't just take the first thing that you can do. There are 3 main like rules I would say that you want to have with your capsule. Number 1, it needs to be very recognizable even when it's very small, because Steam has this small capsule thing as well where it's like 270 pixels wide or something, and it takes up like literally the space of my thumb, even less, on your screen. And even that should already signify what the game is going to be about. In this case, it's only going to be about the font. We'll talk about font in a second. And there's 2 other things you want to do. One, like I said, it needs to instantly clarify what is the genre. There are these certain things where if it's a sci-fi game, there's a big ass spaceship on it that has like the thrusters at full force. Or if you're making an open world survival crafting game, for example, you have someone who is like hammering on an anvil. An example of this capsule is what we did with Forge Industry, where you immediately know that this is going to be a crafting or an automation game, like a crafty building game basically, which is great. You want to have that clarity because it helped us in marketing as well, in people coming up to us on like physical events, for example, because they only saw the big capsule and then they wanted to learn more about the game in total. And then lastly, you want to have some more, you know, emotional clarity. I don't know the exact term for this. Basically, is it a horror game? Is it a cozy game? Because you can have basically the same genre or like the same environment, but maybe it's a cozy game, maybe it's a cute game, maybe it's more of an adventure game, maybe it's more childlike. There are different ways you communicate this as well with, for example, your art style, with the capsule characters and all of that. You want to think about those 3 things. That's the main things that I would say you talk about in Steam capsules. So now the practical steps of how do you make your own minimum viable, like still high enough quality capsule to replace your shitty one that you have right now. You're going to be needing 3 things. The first thing you're going to be needing is a simple logo. And with a logo, I don't mean about like, you know, a web application logo or whatever that's like a square or like your studio logo. No, you're going to want to have basically a word mark, I think is the correct term, the name of your game in a fancy font. And that's it. And you can play around with some of the font sizing to make it more like aligned, for example, but you're just going to go through some font sites and you're going to look at like, okay, what can I commercially use for free? Because there are still a lot of free fonts you can use. And you're just going to figure out what is one that fits my vibe. You know, you have this more fantasy fonts, you have more cute fonts, you have more futuristic fonts. You spend like, I would say, I spend about 30 minutes on this, trying out a whole bunch of different fonts, different alignments and all of that. And once you have this, you're already pretty good. This is going to be, ideally, you want to go for kind of a square shape, I would say, if it's like multiple words. This is maybe a little bit advanced already, I don't know. When we come up with game names, I immediately start thinking when I come up with the game name, what is something that I can put into a font and like nicely style? Because you have like an extremely long name, for example, that's like 7 words. Those become a lot harder than simple 1 or 2 word or maybe 3 word names to put into something that is aesthetically pleasing. And then the second thing you need is going to be your principal art, is what I call it. This is basically your background art. Sometimes this is going to be a screenshot. Other times this is going to be more of like a concept art render, I would say, that shows like your vast open world if you're making like an adventure game, for example, or your environment, which is what we did with Kyoto Anomaly. This is going to be a single piece of art that you're going to reuse everywhere, basically, and it's kind of supposed to blend a little bit in the background. It's not going to be the main focal point of the capsule, but it's going to fill everything up, and it should still have enough contrast and visual clarity to make good sense of what is going on here. And then the last thing you need, and this is most of the time the most complicated thing, is your focal point. And this is most of the time, like 99% of the time, going to be your main character, or a character from your game, ideally with a face, because this is kind of just the meta, how it goes, you know, human faces, they convert better if you can see the face, because humans, like, we track those things better. We have done it with in-game screenshots for some of our games. I'm not 100% like amazing fan of it, but it ended up working for certain games. But this is something that maybe you want to get an actual artist for, or you want to get commissioned, or if you have the actual art skills yourself, but they really need to be good guys, you can make this yourself. This is going to be the main focal point. Once you have those 3 things, you put the principal art as the background, okay? And then what I sometimes even do is I put like either a blur or like a shadow over it to kind of darken it a little bit. Then you put the logo in the center left sides, basically, so like on the left column, like on the center line, basically, and then you put your main character on the other side, on the right side, and that's it. If you really want to go super meta, you add a border, because that's the current meta on Steam, where you also have like a very bright colored border around your main capsule. That's up to you. I don't think it's a requirement. And just those 3 things combined gives you your Steam capsule. Now, this is not going to be like a full like follow along tutorial. That wasn't the goal here. I just wanted to like make you aware of like, hey, you actually want to spend some more time on your Steam capsule, most likely. If you want to go more into this and you want to learn more about Steam capsules in general, there's a few resources that I have for you. First of all, there's a video by Chris Zukowski, who is like a marketing guy, where it's like a 2-hour live stream where he's roasting just people's Steam capsules. And I think what's really good here is that Chris Zukowski is a marketing guy. He only cares about marketing. He doesn't have an artistic bone or a game development bone in his body. And this is kind of honestly the harsh analytical truth and like viewpoint that you need to have to understand what works about a capsule and what doesn't. I'll link that down below. A second resource I have is a website called steamcapsule.com, which I'll also link down below, which once again talks very clearly about what makes a good Steam capsule and what doesn't, and goes through some of the like main mistakes of, for example, legibility, color choices, and all of that, and gives you examples of what's a good one and what's a bad one. It's a site that I really like and can teach you a lot about Steam capsules and capsule trends in general, so that may be something you want to check out. And then one final resource, if you're looking for capsule art yourself, is there's a spreadsheet linked down below that I've compiled personally over the past 2 years with our viewers, for example, of what are people using for their Steam capsule arts, how much did they pay on average, and kind of show some examples of what you can expect. So if you are looking to spend a few $100 on a capsule art, that would be the place that I suggest you to go. So that's basically all I really wanted to say. This was a video that started as a shower thought because I had just done that live stream and I'm like kind of down by the fact that it was so easy to tell what makes a bad game, because the opposite wasn't true. Once you had a good capsule, it became much harder for me to say whether this game was a very good success or a very big failure. But if you had a bad capsule, it was basically always, yeah, this is gonna be a miserably performing game. So because of that, I really urge you, not just make better capsules, but please treat yourself to a higher standard. This is maybe something I didn't mention before. There's a difference even if you make your capsule yourself and you follow my steps. If you half-ass it, if you don't take this serious, then you won't be taken serious by Steam at the end of the day. You won't be selling to other people. And I want you to sell, and I want you to make games and make money and all of that. So you need to ask yourself, is this actually good enough? Is this really something that's good enough that people would want to buy my game? Because like I said, there is a trend. If you make a shitty capsule, most likely you're also going to be making a bad game. And that is something that's a bigger problem. There's other videos about that, but I just want to ask you, try to make good games, please. That's all I'm asking for you, and make those good capsules, make those good games, and basically ship those to Steam. So thank you very much for watching. If you're new here, we make videos every week talking about the things that we learn running our own game dev studio, making games, and all of those things. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to head down below and subscribe, and you'll be notified whenever we upload. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!